something I thought that was going to last my whole life, a marriage, no longer exists. You can't just sit there and expect magic to happen, but you can absolutely create magic. You can absolutely manifest it. I have this concept, morbid optimism. I know I'm going to die, so let me enjoy my life. That was kind of the beginning of me realizing that I don't have to do what everyone else does. So then in that moment, I realized that any opinion on my art was a good opinion. This is what happens when you get thrown these challenges and these moments where your world kind of gets turned around. And I think that being okay with impermanence allows for more freedom. So I want to be okay with that. I'm going to continue to travel, I'm going to continue to fall in love, and I'm going to continue to have heightened experiences in nature and push myself.
Welcome to The Ambiguous Truth. I'm your host, Anthony Mistretta. Really excited to introduce you to today's guest. She is a friend of mine. I got really lucky meeting her paddleboarding one day, and we talked a little bit about her art. And after seeing her art and having a couple of conversations with her, her care for design and intention behind her life is clear through pretty much every decision she makes, whether it's her sort of stylistic choices, her home furnishings, her motorcycle she just bought, which will come up in the episode, and obviously her art. It's really clear that she moves through life extremely intentionally, and she brings that to the world through her art. Let me introduce you to my friend Lexie Baker. Thank you for joining, and here's the show. Those books are actually in the shot, so I'm going to quick move them. Actually, who cares?
The ones on the floor?
Who gives a fuck?
We like that.
We like it. It's books.
Yeah. You should scatter them even more.
I can't operate under that. If I ever saw it in there in like the monitor, I would I don't know what I would do, but I wouldn't.
They look floor organized.
They're floor organized.
I love a good floor organization.
Floor organization. That's a good word. I like that.
Oh God, can we remember? Well, we will.
It's recorded.
Do you have a thing about feet on your table? Does it bother you?
It's a big preference.
Okay. Really?
No, for it.
Oh, you want them on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, other way
around. Because I really like my feet on your table.
That's what it's here for. It's that and production equipment. But yeah, get comfy.
That feels good.
Yeah.
I was yawning a lot in the corner.
I'm sorry.
You didn't see.
Yeah, I didn't. I was heads down trying
It's not your fault.
No, it's technology.
And the incense, probably.
Do you need Benadryl? Well, that's going to make you more tired.
No.
Do you need an EpiPen?
One time I took Benadryl and I fell asleep behind the wheel of my car. And I woke up to a car honking at me, coming at me.
No fucking way.
And I woke up just in time to veer over. Almost died. I've had a lot of near-death situations. I really value my life.
Really?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Okay. Valuing my life.
I'm firstly near-death experiences.
I've also been privy or first on the scene to multiple motorcycle deaths, which makes you wonder why.
The irony.
I am a motorcycle lover. But it kind of ties into my art and my defiance. A theme of my life and my progression in my life as a woman, it is defiance. Because it's been the only way for me to move forward past what my expected norm is in other people's eyes. And just growing up in Kansas, too. A Midwestern way of looking at how a woman should live. But, yeah, I think that one time I jumped off a bridge. It was a 40-foot bridge and
into water, presumably.
Into water.
Yeah, okay.
Oh my God, yeah. Okay. Thank you for filling in that
clarification.
Blank. Everybody, I wasn't trying to kill myself. And I was trying to get that thrill, that rush. I learned quickly that I wasn't built to do things that give you a rush. Because I don't have like the skill needed to execute them appropriately. But a motorcycle is like a learned skill, so I think that I can get there.
How is that different than, say, jumping off of a bridge and like
People
cliff
who
jump?
are like have the innate 9 lives built into them, like a cat. You seem like you have that built into you. You just look like you do.
I think I'd probably do.
Yeah.
I love cliff jumps
Yeah.
and motorcycles.
I think I don't have any. I have 1 life. You look like you have 9. But
I think the problem with that, though, is like you don't recognize when you've lost a life.
yeah.
So like, if you operate under the assumption you have one, then you can like, you know, hold on to that one. If you operate under the assumption you have 9.
With my risk taker friends, like I wish for them to try and count how many they might have left. But yeah, so I just can't land the fall. Like I can't time the fall. I can't calculate it. I can't do that. I wish, and I've tried, but it just wasn't built into me, and I think it's genetics.
Okay. So I definitely have a lot of thoughts on this matter because
Cool.
like I would not consider myself like a risky person per se. I'm pretty risk averse. I think life is all about calculated risks. So like when I get behind when I get on a bike, I understand that there's sort of this just objective baseline risk that you take when you are on a road and there's a bunch of automobiles that are hundreds of thousands pounds.
I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize about risk takers is that they are calculating, but that's maybe half of them.
Yeah, I think there's probably some people who have a much higher risk tolerance than perhaps myself.
Yeah.
I will always like I'll never not wear a helmet on a motorcycle. Whoa. Okay, let me amend that statement.
You have a built-in helmet.
What? Oh. Yeah, maybe absorbs a little bit, but not like 100-mile-an-hour
Camera
crash.
zooms in.
Yeah, zoom in on the hair. But I think I mean, I will choose not to wear a helmet in very specific circumstances. For example, last weekend, I was at a buddy of mine's 40-acre farm, and it was like a combination of a multi-hour building of a greenhouse and kind of turned into a more or less a party. He's got a big barn, half pipe, DJ.
Like
yeah,
such
sick.
a fun Midwestern party.
Really? I have
you
never
just
really
made me jealous.
Very Kansas. Yeah. He's actually from Alabama.
I can't even tell you how many barn parties I've had, or ones that were like about doing a project turning into a party, which is like a great way to do it.
Oh,
great way
so
to accomplish something.
Yeah, because I mean, incentivize. Yeah, like I mean, I would have been there without the party because honestly, like in the morning, I think I got there around like 11 and maybe noon, and then from noon to about 8, call it 11 to like 8 p.m. there was at any point in time at least one joint in rotation, and then like I said, I'm not a big drinker, but I had like a beer. I think I had 3 beers throughout the course of that like 8-hour period of time.
Would you like the smoke of the ganja?
I love the smoke of the ganja.
Okay.
Yeah. I have plenty if you need. Well, you know that when I first met you,
you had a baby tiny
little baby J. Well, I
had a joint that was this big that he offered me, which was perfect because I only wanted 1 hit, and I was like, "Wow, how'd you know?"
To be fair, I had a normal sized joint, but that was left over from like a couple days ago. And I was like, well, I'm not going to scrap it. I'll save it for an occasion. And it was perfect because we didn't even need to break out the new joint.
I was like, you brought this for me?
Yeah, that's all I'm giving you.
I didn't know you were going to meet me yet.
I always know there's going to be a stoner in the crowd. I don't know who, I don't know when, where, but I know there will be one. But going back to the risk tolerance thing, I think like, in that example, 40 acres, this one of the girls there had I would say probably 80s, 90s little like maybe 250 like dual sport. So like old bike. Yeah, you would have really liked it actually.
That's the bike that I should have got, but everyone told
the Royal Enfield.
I love it.
Okay.
Everyone has influenced me to start bigger. They were like, we're going to save you the sizing up process. You get a baby bike, a 200, 250, you're going to immediately grow out of it. and want to do a sale and a transfer to a new one. And so I skipped that process, and now I'm a little nervous about it because the weight of it is a lot, but I can handle it. I've started to like practice in the neighborhood, but it would be cool if I could also have the bike you're describing to be learning more.
Is yours a 500?
It's
600?
It's a 650.
650?
I'm not
I mean, my
sure.
first bike was a 998.
Yeah, but look at you. You're
All
a
right,
gorilla.
fair. I'm not a gorilla.
I'm like a little twig.
Yeah, I probably have like 100 pounds on you. That's fair. But my point is not to boast displacement. My point is that I think, I mean, if you have a 250 or like a 300cc sport bike as your first bike, you're probably going to, I don't know if you're going to necessarily outgrow it. Like there are extremely talented motorcyclists that will take 400cc bikes on a track, and like you have to be pretty damn skilled to like outride that bike.
Yeah.
But if it's a 250, this little, dual sport that's light as shit, and I'm driving it literally no more than maybe 20, maybe 30 miles an hour. And to bear in mind, like I snowboard, I think like 55 miles an hour, ski probably closer to 60, ride, rollerblade and bike. And granted, I do have helmets on those cases, but they're like tiny little fucking things. I can rollerblade 30 miles an hour down the street not wearing a helmet. So I don't really see a big difference in like riding a tiny little motorcycle 30 miles an hour on grass. So like in that situation, there wasn't a spare helmet. I didn't bring my gear with me. I put on boots, but like it was a little bit of a squid behavior perhaps. But I think going back to the whole risk aversion.
Were you planning your exit, your
every place
tumble?
Was an exit strategy. Oh, no, my bail? No, hell no. I was staying on that bike. Yeah, and then there's when there was like you
knew what you were doing.
I knew what I was doing. And I think that's like the point is like when you get on a bike, there's a level of risk that you assume because of circumstances. So it's your responsibility as a safe motorcyclist to reduce that risk.
It's the most dangerous decision you can make is to just get on a motorcycle.
I don't know. I mean, it's dangerous to get behind a bike. It's dangerous. Like life is dangerous. Like there's so much danger.
A bicycle?
I meant like bike, motorcycle, but like also a bike. Like life is dangerous.
Yeah.
And so like it's all about risk mitigation.
You mitigate your death on a daily basis.
Exactly. So like wearing a helmet is a really fucking easy way to bring your risk significantly down. Wearing proper protective gear, period. That absolutely plummets your risk. And then being a better rider, practicing, going to, beginner and advanced rider courses, doing track days, things like that are all ways because what you don't want to have happen is if your risk is here and your skill is here, if your skill is here and that's relatively stagnant, you want to make sure that your risk is always below that skill. So if you're a MotoGP racer, you can go fucking 250 miles an hour around, or if you're like a Isle of Man, you're going 250 miles an hour, but like they're still maintaining risk below their skill. It's just that their skill is up here, so they're able to tolerate risk up there. Whereas my skill being here, I can only tolerate risk there. So like by me imploring when the risk of like a dual sport in a grassy meadow going 20 miles an hour is down here, perhaps my risk without a helmet is actually like
I won't tell anybody. That's great.
Well, I'm telling everyone. Like I think it's just important to judge every situation. Judge every situation, uniquely.
Yeah.
So,
totally.
Yeah. So
I mean, I learned. I did some sketchy things learning, and then I promised Lexie that as soon as she got her own personal bike, that no drink would be had.
Yes.
Turning on the motor at any point.
Or marijuana should not be smoked.
Yeah.
Or any drug or any substance thing that alters
no mind alteration.
Or drowsy. Don't even if you're drowsy. If you're too fatigued, don't
ride.
And
a big part of my training, was you don't use the motorcycle as an outlet for when you're having like a rough day. And that's very common, probably for most men, to use it as to blow steam.
Dare I say most Harley riders?
All Harley riders, 80% of men and 20% of women. But
Is that
I
the
pulled it
80/20
from the
of the Harley?
sky.
Oh, yeah.
But this is how I visualize it. And um yeah, I think like, I mean, it's a dangerous undertaking, especially for me who doesn't have a lot of skill, but I'm it's so empowering for me. Just the fact that I sealed the deal and I have it now, it has like raised my confidence in a way that I needed in my life at this time. And so I will take all the risk aversion and account for as much of that as I possibly can, which is just me starting very humbly in my neighborhood, bopping around in second and third gear.
Yes.
Um,
I'm so excited for you. And I love that point about confidence because I do feel
yeah.
like there's something about like a motorcycle that just
Yeah.
I don't know. Like there's just
Oh,
there aren't many things that just like instill a level of confidence
yeah.
quite like
I mean, we'll get to this maybe at some point discussing my art, but my ex-husband was against the purchase of a motorcycle. He felt like it would be something that would take me further away from our relationship. And in my mind, I thought it would be something that would make him more excited about me. Like I have my own hobbies, my own like wild ventures that I have worked hard to accomplish. Just, getting the endorsement alone as a woman is different. Like I was one woman in 10 people doing the endorsement class. The rest were men. And um, so it's just the odds are so different. And I, I felt really accomplished getting that. And because of the divorce initiating not long after I got my endorsement, and that wasn't the reason, but there was other reasons, and that maybe was part of it for him, but which is really sad. Uh, I think a lot of men might feel intimidated by women wanting to choose a predominantly male dominated
yeah.
venture, and
Well, I feel like that's sort of probably a metaphor for perhaps some of the other things going on in the relationship where like
sure,
you saw a motorcycle, something that's, primarily dominated by men,
yeah,
and you saw that as an opportunity to further explore your identity.
yeah.
And he saw that as a
Yeah.
challenge to his.
Sure, which is unfortunate because in my mind, I was like, wow, he's gonna think I'm a baddie.
Right, you're dating a badass bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
You've been married to a badass bitch for 9 years. Look at her doing something new
Yeah.
in her 30s to like show that she can learn new things. And
Fuck yeah.
so unfortunately, the cost of divorce immediately shut down the motorcycle purchase that I had been planning on and was ready for. And there was a couple more times where I like tried to buy the bike that I wanted, and someone else bought it, and I just took it as a sign as it wasn't time yet. And
Yeah.
then this one, when it came along, everything worked out perfectly. And you were there the day before to guide me on some of the checklist items to look for, and it all went through great. So now from here, it's just a learning process and all an addition to new Lexie, new confidence building, which also translates well into how my art career is flowing. My business is called Psychedelicious. It's named accordingly after the tasty space that exists between psychedelic and delicious. And I have honed in my craft surrounding that aesthetic for the last 6-7 years when I started this business. And my business is sustaining my life.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
I can't believe I just said that.
Yeah.
I've been waiting my whole life to say that. There's a couple other jobs in there, which we'll get to.
I think that's powerful. I feel like we drank to the wrong thing.
Yeah.
we
Cute little.
Yeah, the sound effect. Maybe I'll copy that sound effect. I'll add that to the board.
Psychedelicious.
Yeah, the psychedelicious.
When you
sound.
look at my logo, it absolutely makes that sound.
I don't think I've seen your logo. Is that
It's a moon face, and it has my eyebrow piercing, and then the tongue is out, and there's a little juice splashing off the tongue.
Is that your profile picture for Instagram? Have I seen it on Instagram?
You probably have.
Okay.
You've probably seen it some.
I don't think so. It's not your profile picture because I know that's you, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if I
We'll put it as the episode image.
cover it. Yeah, unless you think of a better one, but that works for sure.
It might have to be more erotic.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this podcast very quickly became an explicit show.
Yeah.
Between language, subject matter, and now like cover art.
Life and death.
I want to go back to the beginning, like when art was just a small part of your life. What was your introduction to art, and how did it sort of initially take form?
I was 3 years old, which there's a very like iconic moment that my mom and my aunt like to bring up. My aunt was an artist. She's a chosen aunt because all of my family lives in Scotland. And so the family that I've gained in the US, my 2 US grandparents and one of my US aunts has passed away. So I do technically have all my initial family, which is 5 others, and then one other aunt in the US. So that's all who's here, but then there's like 40 to 60 extension, depending on what you consider family in Scotland. But so my chosen aunt, she saw that I had been using this tiny little Swiss Army knife. You guys know where that little tiny scissor part is that you can pull out?
Yes.
It's like a relatively non-dangerous, non-sharp. I was very attracted to sharp things. I would collect like sewing needles in my pocket because I loved the little color bead that was on the end of them. And I would get into trouble in preschool because I'd be like screaming. They would find like a needle in my pocket that had like stabbed me and had to pull my pants down in front of the whole class. And I remember, being exposed in front of all my classmates in preschool and just like that being my initial moment of what it felt like to feel embarrassed in front of people. But I love sharp things. I was always looking for razor blades, just weird shit to test the boundaries. I think that was my first way of testing boundaries. And I also put my hand on the stove once because it was glowing. It was a coil stove and the orange glow was just like psychedelic and gorgeous. And as a kid, you gotta touch that shit and then you learn. So I learned dangerous things quickly and was definitely a tomboy. My brothers introduced me to a lot of crazy shit faster than you would if you didn't have brothers. And my parents just kind of realized that I had heavy interests. Not sharp things, but using the scissors to cut out pieces from magazines. And so I was 3 years old. Who knows how to cut at 3 years old? Cut out intricate pieces.
So that's the beginning of the collage work.
Yeah. So I've just only recently reintroduced collage into my repertoire as an artist. And everything about my artistry can be connected to my childhood. I sell stickers for a living, and stickers I was highly obsessed with as a child. I had constipation issues as a child, and I was rewarded with stickers every time I had a successful scenario. And so stickers became this highly rewarding gratification system for me, and then turned into, more of what the typical kid loves them for how cute and fun, and you can just stick them on anything and fuck up any person's personal property. It was introduction to graffiti as a child. And so
all for successful shit.
Yeah. I'm not afraid to share that because it's good to be vulnerable and everyone experiences something like this.
Of course.
And it translated into a big part of my current career, which is living in Colorado, people are so thirsty for stickers. They have their coolers and their water bottles at all times and laptops. And I've traveled to foreign countries and people do not slap stickers all over their laptops. You need some on yours. Like we do here.
I'm too organized for that.
Yeah.
I have designated places for stickers, but a laptop's not one of them.
I believe that. I'm interested. So I sell stickers really well in Denver, Colorado, and that's been a big push in my artist career is translating a lot of my designs into stickers. So stickers in my childhood, translating to now, and collage work, tiny scissors, cutting out pieces. I cut out women. I've always been enthralled by the female form, and that absolutely translates into my work now.
Beautiful. We took a moment to appreciate the sentiment that you are now supporting yourself through art. So when did you sort of make a decision, or did you even make a conscious decision to pursue art more seriously and perhaps as a career choice?
I began to sell earrings in high school. I would sling them to the girls in between classes. And that was the start of me knowing that my creations could be lucrative. I begged my mom to have my ears pierced at age 5, and she took me to a jewelry making shop where I could make my own earrings. And she told me that my earrings don't have to match. She was like, I know everything you see with women wearing, they're matching, but you don't have to. You can choose to have different on each side. And that was kind of the beginning of me realizing that I don't have to do what everyone else does. And I think my mom knows how influential she was in this, but I don't know if she realized how impactful it would be for the rest of my life. That like I learned very early to choose different paths. And I don't think she realized it would lead to rebellion in the way that it has too. But just starting small with that, with your daughter, is huge. And so my mom actually has taken tips from me, and she's become a jewelry artist. So I became a jewelry artist, and then that's her full-on career. She does like beautiful leather jewelry, but there is a lot of creativity.
She does that full time now.
Yeah, there's
amazing.
a lot of creativity in my family. My dad makes puppets. His Instagram handle is called Puppets for Climate Change. So he creates these puppets to tell stories about, protecting our world and what that requires, and making, conversations surrounding CO2 emissions palatable. So there was always creative bones inspiring me, and I was put into a lot of really awesome rudimentary creative courses so that I could very early on start to hone in what my interests and skills were. So I've dabbled in every form of art making, I think, and it feels like it. And it wasn't until after college that I went to school for art business. It's a combination degree, and my dad was pleased when I finally found a degree that incorporated business, because he wasn't super wild about just art being pursued as a career. He saw my potential, and he was afraid that, that wasn't going to be lucrative for me in the long run, and didn't want it to be wasted. But when I found this combo degree, I think it eased him a lot. And I'm really glad that I found it, because it did give me insight into how to run my own business and how to, connect with galleries and show my work and just get my work out there, instead of being like someone who creates a bunch of stuff but doesn't know how to show it. And there are plenty of artists like that, which is unfortunate. So glad to have that upper hand without really realizing the importance of it until it came time to apply. Then after college, I had emphasized in sculptural art, so I learned how to use a lot of batty power tools and was working in wood. And that was fucking rad. But when you come out of school, all of a sudden you realize, oh, I don't have access to those tools unless I get my own workshop or pay insanely monthly fees. And most people aren't doing so well financially right out of the gate of college.
Quick related anecdote. That piece right there is the Atlanta skyline taken from the perspective of Piedmont Park, a photo that I took myself, but a buddy of mine worked in college, the Invention Studio. And so there were 3D printers, there were laser engravers, there were laser cutters. And so
those didn't exist for me yet, but that's cool.
Did they not?
No.
Oh,
everything changed right after I graduated.
Oh, okay.
I graduated 2010, and then the whole world transformed.
Right. This would have been, a little bit after.
Yeah.
But I had access to all those things. And then once I graduated, I was like, well, shit, I guess I'm not making anything cool anymore.
But that's also the thing with college too, and a creative career, and probably other careers, is the tools and the platforms change rapidly. And so I'm actually glad that I didn't put forth a different type of energy to become a graphic designer, because all of that transformed rapidly. I chose illustration, and I self-trained myself in Illustrator and how to illustrate and just draw my concepts after college, because I no longer had access to those tools, I had to find a different way to translate my ideas. And pencil and paper was, alas, the cheapest.
Yes.
And I was pleasantly surprised to see how my skill translated in drawing, and it just became my way of journaling. It became my way to get things and concepts and ways that I wished my life felt like, or experiences that I had that I wanted to get out of my body and share just for myself, but then, see how people reacted. And once I had like my first gallery show in Portland, Oregon of all illustration, and I saw how people related to my concepts, I realized that that was going to be my mode of translating my ideas and appealing to people. And, a lot of artists talk about, you don't make art to appease others. And it's very fucking true. But if you want to sell your art, you have to.
I'm glad you took it there, because I was curious to kind of explore the relatability piece, because I was talking to a friend of mine last night about, the creation of music, specifically in this context, for like self versus for, the outcome, right? So how do you as an artist sort of manage what feels like that sort of competing force between creating for self, but also recognizing that there needs to be relatability there, otherwise you're not going to be able to support yourself?
Luckily, that just happens naturally because all humans are experiencing the same things in different forms. And something that feels like the most powerful, transformative, painful, or enlightening experience isn't just for me. And in a way, it's comforting when you realize that other people are having that same experience too, because it can be really isolating when you're in the pain of it. And that's something I've realized in just the last 1 to 2 years after going through the divorce and creating divorce or work based on the pains of divorce, and seeing people just like gravitate toward that and understand my experiences or seeing the beauty. It does happen naturally, and I don't allow that to get into my head where artists are like, why are you creating with money as the end goal? Like, that's not really what I'm doing. I'm just creating, and luckily it becomes what people are wanting. But I don't have the luxury to just make art for the fuck of it. If I want to be a successful artist and let it be my income, or personally transform it into my income, I have to create things that people want to purchase.
Totally. Like those two things can exist simultaneously, the creation for yourself and for others, because like you said, like art, any form of art, whether it's music or drawn, collage work, illustration, it's all like comes from emotion, right? And your emotional experience moving through the world, moving through a divorce, as you alluded to. So others are going through those experiences. So it's natural that when you create for self, there's going to be alignment and resonance with other people as well. On the flip side, I'm curious, like, when did you first experience rejection in your art, or just like what felt sort of in that moment like failure, and then how did you sort of overcome that?
Yeah, there's a few circumstances, and overcoming, I always look back at as a beautiful moment. But I have some sexually explicit art. Behind Anthony is the vagina crystal piece. And I created that in a moment of like pure empowerment and bliss and just like joy in my body and my experience. And so that piece is a very empowering piece. And there is a circumstance where there was a time where I was very afraid to release that artwork. I was afraid for my parents to see it. My mom I went to school in a nunnery, so she has a lot of Catholic guilt. And showing my parents that I took a direction of like sexualizing my art and
do you not think that
empowering
your
women.
confirmation priest would appreciate that?
This is actually, it's hilarious you said that. Let me segue into the moment where he did see it. So just to make the story even more exciting, I go back to Kansas every now and again, and I do markets with my mom because she's an artist, and it's a way for her and I to bond. And my art does really well there because Lawrence, Kansas, where I'm from, is a very liberal town. And I think my art is kind of next level liberal. And so
a bit more progressive, sure.
Yeah. And so when I take it there, I see we did a farmers market show together, and so it was mostly vegetable people and, Kansas farmers coming to get their veggies, and then bam, here's my sexualized, psychedelic, female empowerment, living on a whole different cosmic realm artwork in front of their eyes. And I had multiple women pass by me, in their mid 50s who saw the vagina crystal piece that I had front and center on purpose. I did it for myself to boost my confidence and just like get past my nerves. And I heard women like whispering disgust. And at first it made my heart sink. And then I kept hearing it all day and looking over at my mom, and my mom just was living in her own cute Scottish woman world. Like, as a foreigner, she had a lot of intense boundaries to break through coming to the US at age 19, even with my dad's parents and them accepting her as a foreign woman into the world and the mother of their grandchildren. Like, they were not the best to her in that regard because they had very close-minded small town vibes, which my mom was so unbothered that it shocked me. At this farmer's market, she didn't really give a shit that people had opinions on my art. So then in that moment, I realized that any opinion on my art was a good opinion. That means I was invoking emotion. It didn't matter what kind of emotion I was invoking. And maybe some of those women went home later and took out their mirror and looked at their vagina because they forgot what it looked like and it was dusty and they needed to brush off the cobwebs. And they were reminded, I came out of a vagina. I gave birth. These, things came out of my pussy. And that's what's happening
crystals,
there.
literally crystals,
Yeah.
your children.
It can represent childbirth. It can represent sexuality, empowerment. It's like crystals are a source of energy. And that's how I see them. And that was the purpose of this piece, is just like sourcing energy from your vagina and how that makes you feel. And once I learned to find power in that piece, then, I felt comfortable in whatever I created and whatever I shared. So there isn't really any holdback. And it's just like contributes to my desensitization. And I want to contribute to others' desensitization because in some realms, that's feminism. And that is reminding people what role we can play in the world, and we don't have to stifle our ideas. So the holdbacks have always translated into pushing me forward harder and faster. And I absolutely exist in this space of defiance. And I'm not sure why I was molded this way or how it happened. But anytime someone has told me that I likely can't do something, or I shouldn't do something this way, it incentivizes the fuck out of me.
That's the rebellion side of you. Yeah, totally.
To do it. But to do it in a way that like people can't be shocked by. Like it's like a palatable presentation or lots of people love it. And so like if they have a negative opinion on it, it's like, well, sorry, but people are loving it. People feel this way too. And, maybe you need to reconsider some of the ways that you're stuck in your own frame of thinking. And, I think I realized as an artist, you do hold a platform to create messages, and it could be signs of the times, and you can be political about your work. You can be inadvertently political. Because my work is illustrated and it's not a photograph, I can hide things in there that only some people will see, or innuendos that, people who are ready to discover it will discover it. And that's kind of fun for me to do, like little Easter eggs, but mostly phallic and perverted stuff.
Well, I want to hear a little bit more about some of the themes of your art. But before we get into that, and I know we're like kind of just dancing around your art, I want to ask one question beforehand, which is, why do you think art is important in this world?
Yeah. I don't think anything else is as important other than love. And I think that visually people can get so stuck in what they think reality should be. And art personally has allowed me a space to translate worlds that I wish existed, or concepts I wish were accepted, or shapes and spaces and forms that I could only dream of, but somehow was gifted with the talent to translate. And I think anyone could learn the skills to translate. But I think having artists doing that job and voluntarily choosing to commit their life to something that isn't necessarily going to sustain them financially is like them volunteering to give their brain to the world for their pleasure. And the people who haven't had the opportunity, the space, the time, the energy to devote to learning that skill get to be the ones to enjoy the artwork. And in a way, like introverts, extroverts, like introverts have to feed off of the energy of extroverts in order to be in a space. People who haven't had the chance to become creatives for themselves get to feel the creativity just by viewing what someone's output is, and they get the benefits of that. Kind of like, psychedelic music makes you feel like you are on psychedelics at some points, like you get the runoff energy of the experience, or you just get to relate and you get to feel seen because someone else was able to capture a feeling that you weren't able to translate.
I appreciate that response.
Thanks. It was very roundabout.
Yeah.
It took me a second to get there.
No, I think it's clear. So I want to hear about your art. So talk to me a little bit about the themes. Talk to me a little bit about, you've sort of alluded to collage, but you've also mentioned you do illustration. So
yeah.
What are you doing now?
So illustration, collage are my two main avenues, but my work explores themes of empowerment, eroticism, psychedelic energy, the natural world, and our awestruck relationship with the cosmos. And I think like a little more recently, I've incorporated more of a Western aesthetic into my artwork just because of my Kansas roots. But I like to combine the Western aesthetic with like the cosmos and do like an alien Western mashup. It just feels right. It makes me think of that Harrison Ford movie, Aliens and Cowboys, I think is what it was called. Really good, actually. But everything I do is drawn initially in pencil, unless it's collage. And then I ink it, I scan it in Illustrator, and I digitize it from there. In order to be successful as an artist, I had to come up with a way where I wasn't just selling originals and one-offs. I needed to replicate those. And so that's when I trained myself in Illustrator, because I had to translate my work into multiples so that the prints could sell and the stickers could sell, and I could have varying avenues in retail spaces and galleries, and that like volume really comes down to like success financially. So once I kind of honed in that skill, I was able to target the business aspect of things. But my concepts, have a nature component to them because I highly value my natural experiences and what I see in nature. Just like, I see plants and the sky and the cliff walls all as their own living, breathing forms. And I get to turn what I see into the drawn version of, how nature exists through my eyes. And that I like to think that it perpetuates an interest in nature for people by combining sexuality and nature. We already know that sexuality gets a lot of attention because we all need and want it consistently, but nature is a harder thing to break through to everyone. And by combining those things, it just is so appealing to people.
And I feel like those two things are just like so raw and organic.
And they
and
just
like,
should always
yeah,
exist.
yeah. I feel like if there was so much noise removed from the world, like those two things would exist incredibly powerfully.
Definitely.
Why do you feel drawn to those themes? Why do you feel so drawn to psychedelic art, to erotic art, to sort of empowerment? What is it about those things that you feel align with you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think maybe to try and this is what's happening in my brain. What you're seeing here is what my brain looks like. And if I can't get these ideas out, then they feel stuck. The moment I complete an illustration, I know artists, musicians feel the same way about writing a song. Like, you all of a sudden feel this insane sense of relief when you have achieved conceptualizing something that existed in your brain. When it comes out of your hand through the instrument or through the pencil, the relief is like so pleasurable. And so first off, the reason I'm drawn to it is because they just exist in my brain. It looks like this. And I want other people to see what it looks like. But psychedelia can translate how playful I am. I see such warped reality that psychedelia just connects really well, and surrealism connects really well with the reality that I am experiencing in my mind. And so it is just like the right avenue, the right color spectrum for the things that I see and how I want to output. And um, I I mean, I have like a psychedelic color palette, but it's also like nature brights. Still, it's like natural looking. And then eroticism, I think I was just born a highly sexualized person, and it's a therapeutic process for me to translate it creatively, and then to see how many other people are also that way too once they get to witness it. But I am absolutely, enthralled by the female form. I love drawing breasts and vaginas and muffs and booties. I also love drawing penises too. I do see the male form as maybe more beautiful than other people would. I think a lot of people would describe the penis as a very interesting looking piece of anatomy, and not many people would describe it as beautiful, but I
How
do.
rude.
Yeah, I do see it as beautiful and as equally as beautiful as breasts and vaginas. But it's not as like sought after in the creation art. So
Why do you feel that is?
I think it could be because I lean more toward feminist art, and if I started,
In terms of like what art you consume and you
yeah,
see. Okay. So there's like a sort of a
sure.
bias there.
So if I all of a sudden started, drawing erect penises, I think people would be a little downtrodden about what I was, the empowerment for women that I'm trying to portray.
Yeah.
And I also really am trying to portray like male vulnerability in some of my artwork too.
So maybe like sort of historically, as there are symbols used in art like serpents and things that tend to be more, like male dominant, and sort of like the male is seen as like the warrior, which
Yes.
and I think sort of part of what I'm hearing is part of like your almost responsibility as an artist who tries to really approach the feminine side of things, is to kind of try and illustrate ways that the feminine can
Be portrayed the way that men have been
Yes.
portrayed for centuries. And
Yes.
all of that art exists everywhere, males dominating, and, warrior is the exact word for sure. And,
Well, and like you talked about your sculpture background, right? You think about like the statue of David, one
Yeah.
of probably the most iconic statue of all time, and it's a naked male with a penis.
seen it in person,
Yeah.
loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it. And I love seeing all the naked male art that exists. It's incredible. But I wanted to give women the opportunity to get to see themselves represented in the feminine form, in an empowered state. And this piece absolutely exhibits that. This is a woman who ripped the heart out of her lover with her mouth. So she's blood dripping from her mouth and blood dripping on the floor, and her chains are breaking. The whole concept kind of came from this like pagan story surrounding Galentine, which is now Valentine's Day. But the pagan story, read that women would leave their partners and they would run off with the rest of the women of their tribe and pave their own pathways together. And so her hair is like a storm, which just kind of shows her stature alone, shows she's empowered. She's like done the deed. She's got the heart throbbing in her hand and she's broken free. And now she can do whatever the fuck she wants. So I wanted.
When did you create that?
I created that actually before the divorce.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was curious.
It seems like it could have come after.
Do you feel like that was sort of perhaps a catalyst isn't the right word, but sort of you were internalizing. Yeah, maybe premonition, or you saw yourself in that
totally.
art. And
there were components of the relationship where I felt trapped and unable to express myself as freely as I wished.
Do you feel like that in and of itself was something that enabled your art to actually become even greater because you felt the tension and the entrapment greater?
Like the process of the divorce did that?
I mean the relationship. Like, do you feel feeling trapped in that relationship allowed you to create better art?
In my specific situation, the divorce came as a surprise to me, and I was actually existing in my relationship quite happily, but there are things that I can look back at in retrospect and be like, I was actually kind of drowning in this specific scenario and didn't realize it until I got to experience something different. But there was absolutely spaces within the relationship that were pushing my angst into creating art surrounding that. And I don't think I would have created certain pieces if it hadn't have been for either the comfort of being in the same relationship for so long and having the space to do that, or the angstiness of not feeling fulfilled and wishing for something else and creating the art of what I was wishing for, which absolutely happened in a lot of cases.
Gotcha.
So there's pieces that I made that was me fantasizing about what I wished my life was like. But then there was also pieces I made because I liked my life and I felt comfortable and I felt happy and I was able to create in a space of joy. So it was a combo.
I think a lot of art stems from tense emotional connection. And that can be a good thing and it can be a bad thing. Or maybe put differently, it can be, intense sorrow that can create something beautiful, or it can be intense happiness that can create something beautiful. Do you feel like your art sort of represents that entire spectrum of emotion?
Yeah, you and I were kind of talking about this the other day, and it has always surprised me that the majority of my artwork is created in a state of bliss, comfort, happiness, new fun experiences. And, it doesn't line up with the typical storyline of the struggling, depraved, pain-staken artist and creating from those depths of pain. And I always have been a little worried about that. Looking around the world at the greats, not that I'm striving to be one of the greats. I don't really think that way, but I guess I was like, I'm not like the other ones.
Yeah.
I create in a different space of emotion.
Yeah.
But then I've kind of grown into myself and grown into understanding my optimism and how it's beneficial and how it's not beneficial. And it wasn't until the divorce process that I learned how to create art out of the pain. And so some of my recent pieces, I did an exhibit at Sputnik, which is a Denver dive bar on South Broadway. And it's kind of a rite of passage to get to show your art there. If you are a South Broadway girly, which I am because I've worked down there at the other store I work at. So it was a big deal to me to get to have a gallery space there. Not only that, it was the first gallery show that I'd done since my relationship kind of went into shambles and I had to work on myself, regain my every aspect of my life. And I did not have the energy to create art. I did not want to make anything. I just felt a lot of pain and I couldn't translate it creatively. And
Mm.
I was just selling existing art, but my whole world was focused on vamping up my income in the more dominant ways, which since I wasn't creating new art, I had to put more energy into other forms of income and in order to be able to take over the loan on my home. And I
Mm.
successfully did that. And once all those things that felt impossible to had happened and I had succeeded, I began to feel the breakthrough again in creativity, and I had years of built up ideas that were ready to be translated. So my show was called Raw Resilience, and a lot of the artwork was
Mm.
about pulling myself out of these depths into a newfound space of success that I achieved entirely on my own. And just that experience alone is going to propel me forward as an artist. And it's sad to say, like, no one wants to go through, I mean, some people want to go through a divorce. No one wants to experience the what it does to you and how much it can turn your world upside down. But that's what's happening in this piece. This one's called Raw Resilience, and it's me, and I'm coming out of my aorta. I'm pulling myself by my hair from my aorta to just like exhibit the resilience that I've had with my own heart, my own being.
Thank you for sharing that. You certainly strike me as someone who is optimistic
Yeah, to a fault.
to a fault. And I think honestly, I really appreciate you sharing all of that because I find myself sometimes, it's kind of fucked up, but almost feeling like if I had more sorrow, more sadness, like more of this depressiveness in me, then perhaps I would be, able to leverage that for better art. But, if art stems from emotion, who says it has to stem from a negative emotion?
It's nice as you inform yourself of the typical sayings that have existed in our lifetimes, and you realize that only one person decided to make that up and it resonated with people, so they perpetuated it. Nothing is set in stone. And just because these people have said this throughout the times, it doesn't mean that there aren't other circumstances or that, those truths can't be rewritten. And that has been another form of resistance that feels really good is like, yeah, you can completely rewrite the way that others have formed reality.
So in terms of like your creative path, did you experience any resistance from outside forces saying, oh, you should, like you mentioned your dad wanted you to
Mm-hmm.
kind of like explore something more businessy, but you sort of found a compromise there. Did you experience any sort of like resistance to pursuing a creative path?
When I was in college at KU, I had a teacher she was the head of the graphic design program there. This is before I found the double major in Colorado. I started my first 2 years of college at the University of Kansas, and I was double majoring in business and graphic design, which was a big undertaking. I had like 21 and a half credits for multiple semesters. And I just thought I was on top of the world because I did really well in high school and thought I could take all of this on. And I had difficulties with the graphic design teacher. My work was great, and I had a lot of other students who backed that up. And, you can see from what I create now that I have the creative eye, but she felt like I wasn't devoted enough to the graphic design program because I was extracurricular. I was also doing business, and I was on the ultimate frisbee women's traveling team at KU.
Do you still play?
Well, just for funsies
Yeah.
on the side. And she took all of this intel as me just not being a devoted designer.
Mm.
So she had in her mind that she wasn't going to move me forward in the assessment process. And so she chose not to. And that was a huge blow to the face in my world because I had always, you know, done well and been moved forward and been praised. And when I look back in the moment, I was so disappointed. I thought my art career was over if I wasn't going to be allowed to move forward in this degree here. But she really, as bitchy as it was for her to do that assessment, which felt very personal and not about my art, it just felt like she didn't think I had what it took to put the energy into all those things and succeed, that she, chose less talented artists to move forward in the program over me. And I've analyzed it a lot, I was like, was I just not a good artist, And it's like I was making some really cool stuff, and she was a huge barrier. And then I started, the double degree or the combination degree, and the teachers there saw my talent, and it was a much more personalized experience. And I got to hone in my craft in different arenas and not graphic design, and with hands-on sculptural work and some illustration. And I got to see, parts of me thriving. And so when I graduated, I looked back at that moment with her and had gratitude for kind of what I felt like was a really rude decision on her behalf, and was able to look at it as like, okay, this is what happens when you get thrown these challenges and these moments where your world kind of gets turned around. To me, at that age, it was one of the most impactful things that had happened to me. I hadn't had a lot of tribulations, and I don't even really consider that a tribulation anymore, but she was trying to halt, my creative experience in a way that felt like she didn't believe in me. And it only perpetuated me to work harder to show like, oh no, yeah, I am meant for this. I've always been meant for this, but just in this form instead.
Yeah.
And so everything that's happened in that regard has just pushed me more forward. And same with my most recent partner, my ex-husband. We always had issues discussing the financial component. And I was always pulling my weight, half of what, our finances needed to be. And because I wasn't making nearly as much as what he was making in his career, he always looked down on my career as an artist. He was supportive of me being an artist and making artwork, but he wasn't supportive of it as a career, was always sharing his distaste with where I was financially.
It's interesting because it almost seems like, so the first anecdote about the teacher who didn't move you forward, it sounds to me like she wanted you to go balls to the wall 100% in on this illustration thing. And it seems like you kind of had some boundaries with yourself and a bit more of an understanding that you need to have a variety.
I need the well-rounded.
Yeah, you need to be more well-rounded. And it's funny because it almost seems like your ex-husband perhaps almost wish that you did more outside of art. It's like you can't please anyone. You're trying to figure out your own path, and like you try something and someone's unhappy. But I think that all speaks to the truth that you can only make yourself. You can only do what you want to do. You're never going to be able to appease someone 100%, because if you bend over backwards for the teacher, you're doing yourself a disservice. And if you bent over backwards for your ex-husband, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah.
And I bet now you're looking back at both of those experiences and thinking, I'm proud of myself. And you should be proud of yourself for sticking true to your guns and following your heart and following what you want to do, even if other people are kind of nudging you to do something different.
If I had done what he was requesting, which was to have a 9-to-5, to be putting in X amount of money into our savings account, going to bed at these times that were similar to his, eating at similar times as him, not staying up at my creative hour, like I would have had to altered everything that I felt was powerful about me.
Totally.
To fit what he was experiencing. And he was requesting me to change most everything about myself to fit his world, because he was succeeding more financially. He was the one that I would have to mold to, because money is what he fully viewed as success. And so that was the end of our relationship, when we realized how misaligned our values were in that way.
Right.
And it's not that he's wrong. It's not that I'm wrong. It's just we weren't
different strokes for different folks.
We're very different. And it took some really excruciating circumstances to realize how different we were, and that we weren't meant to be in a relationship anymore.
And I think you can be you should be different people, but it is
Yeah.
really hard when there's just a complete value misalignment,
Yeah.
and like you're someone
They
who
don't teach you that when you're like really young and getting married.
I think, yeah, they don't. That's definitely something that's come up in my life recently and like exploring some of my past relationships. One in particular that ended poorly. I think the roles were a bit reversed, and like I was more in your shoes in the sense that I felt pressure from her to conform to her lifestyle. And it felt like it stemmed, oddly enough, from not her knowing what she wanted, but thinking that she knew what she wanted. So she was
Sure.
requesting something of me
Yeah.
because I wasn't
Comes
fitting her
from her
mold.
family,
Yeah,
probably.
probably.
That's what I was seeing with my.
But the funny thing is, when I did conform, it wasn't ever good enough.
Yeah.
And that was the lesson I learned, was you can never
Yeah.
change yourself for someone, because if you continue to be this relationship
Sure.
chameleon, you'll never
Yeah.
be enough.
That was a huge thing with the therapy I was going through, when we were deciding about the dissolution of the relationship. And the biggest thing was, if you do all these things, can you envision him being satisfied? And I just couldn't. I just felt like his issues were within himself at the end of the day. And me changing my life to appease to him wasn't going to solve what was happening within him.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that I saw that and made that decision. I mean, I didn't really have a decision at the end of the day. It was his decision. He made some mistakes and didn't have the power to own up to them, and didn't want to have to put in the energy it would take to work toward fixing things and making things better, and was headstrong in me making the changes. And it's not going to serve anybody. So yeah, some really beautiful transitions came in my life, and I haven't began to feel them until very recently. It's a long process, and that kind of pain can really fuck up your confidence for a while. And I've been, digging myself out of the ground and climbing back up the mountain slowly. And I just recently have got to this point in my life where I'm so fucking proud of everything that I've done, and where my art world is at, and my personal space, and owning my home, and creating the balance of taking care of the landscaping and my dog and my social life and my 8 jobs. I do have 8 jobs. It's nearly impossible to only be an artist. But what I was going to wrap up with that statement previously was that I'm just going to be happy living in this moment that I'm in right now. Some people are like, what's next in your art career? It's like, no, that's not how I look at the world. I got here, and it was so fucking hard to get here. So let me just enjoy being here right now, where everything feels balanced at the moment, because that is so fucking rare, and I don't need to tack anything else onto the pile in this balance. So let me
100%.
just enjoy that. And that's a value thing.
It is, and I think it's a big perspective shift. It's a shift from, I have a goal that I want to achieve, and chasing that milestone and continually chasing those milestones, versus the perspective of being just grateful, being grateful for the moment and for like how beautiful life can be, and how beautiful life is if you choose to see it that way. And, I think a big lesson that I've also learned fairly recently is just the importance of being appreciative of the moment. I think that's something that I definitely take with me in everything that I do, because it's easy to become complacent in where you are and then look for what's that next thing I could go after.
Sure. I mean, we've been trained from the moment we came out of the vagina. Bigger, better, bigger, better, bigger, better.
100%.
American dream. And maybe I'm lucky in a sense that I had a European mother who had a very different outlook on money and the world.
I think you are. I think so. I think that's like really, I'm not some like crazy capitalist person and anti-American society, but I definitely have a lot of.
We should be.
Well, I think there's like, a healthy amount of like.
Yeah.
There's obviously problems.
We live here, so, we got to kind of work with it.
100%. Yeah. And even when I chose not to live here and lived abroad, I think there's still so much influence that American culture had on me for 20 some years of my life that like, it's at a certain level, I just had to realize this is probably never leaving. Like, this is just with me forever because it's so deeply ingrained in who I am. But on the note about, the European mother and upbringing, I think that there is something really important that it's a lesson that we should take, even though it may not be part of American culture. And that is that, it's more than just like chasing after X. Because, we go to elementary and then you're like, all right, well, now you go to junior high and then you go to junior high and then you go to high school. And then it's like, okay, well, now you go to when you're done in high school, do well. So you go to college. And then once you go to college, you get your job. And then you get your job and you're like, okay, what's next? And it's like, well, nothing.
Yeah.
Maybe retirement at 65, but like you have to, like the next has to be now.
Choose your adventure.
Yeah, it's literally a choose your adventure book.
You got here now, okay? Don't get stuck in the lineup.
And the reason why I say I think you're lucky to have that upbringing is because, this isn't like a woe is me statement, but I think I didn't have that upbringing. And it took me being beaten down by like the corporate culture for so long and just continuing to like take the path that was encouraged, but never left me feeling fulfilled and never left me, and that's why like I've just been exploring hence the podcast, but also hence just like, it's also me exploring so many more, like getting back into playing saxophone, like exploring the creative sides of life, exploring the things that like really feel like riding more motorcycles, adventuring, going camping more, like just doing things that make me feel full in the moment rather than like orienting my life around a chase of something meaningless, i.e. money. That isn't to say money's bad. Obviously, like money is not, I don't believe it's the root of all evil by any means. I think it's an incredible tool that you can use to leverage and create a more fulfilling life for yourself, but it shouldn't be the objective. And that's kind of what you've been saying this whole time about, with art.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. It has to be a component. It just has to. I will recognize that I am a white woman who is privileged, and that has given me opportunity to go to college and hone in on a skill and use something like creativity as a lucrative form. Yeah. And it takes much of that to make that happen, unless you can make it through additional struggles if you don't have all of that.
Yes.
And so I am very lucky to have that, and that I want to recognize that, and I want to recognize it in my art. And a big part of my art is inclusivity. I want to recognize my privilege by trying to give a platform or a space of existence to women of color, for example, in my artwork. So, I could just be making all pieces that are girls that look like me. And it feels important to make artwork for other women who get to see my work and say, oh, I'm represented here. I don't see this often in illustrative artists. I don't see there being like a variety of skin tone colorations to choose from, to choose the one that looks the most like me.
Right, because even on your Instagram, you'll post the same piece of art with different complexions.
It just feels good. And there is like a slight line that I have to be careful with, to be tactful, to not like over-sexualize women of color when that's not my space to choose to do so. So, I do feel like I'm pushing it with some of these pieces where like the shackles are being broken because it's not really my story, depending on the skin tone of that piece.
I see the connotation behind the shackles themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I still, I'm trying to just create a space where more skin tones are represented. I also like to kind of blur the line between skin tones and do psychedelic skin colorations and more of like an alien existence, something that more people who are just in touch with their psychedelic nature can connect to, rather than connecting to a more realistic coloration. And so there are all these like attempts at inclusivity in my mind as I'm creating.
I want to go back to the point on privilege, because I was talking to a friend of mine, and I don't remember the exact question, but something along the lines of, how do you feel about being like a white, straight man? That is an interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
My response was something to the tune of, I think we live in this world where privilege is painted as a negative thing. Privilege is not a bad thing. It can turn into a bad thing if you fail to make it a good thing. And so what I mean by that is, maybe your privilege is that you come from a background where money's not a concern. And like, frankly, I didn't grow up in a crazy wealthy family, but I never had to worry about food being on my plate. And I'm sort of, in this weird freelancy software world where I've like not had a full-time 9 to 5 W-2 salary job for almost 4 years now. I'm also not concerned with there being food on my plate. And that's an incredible privilege. And so it's on you to take that opportunity and capitalize on it and make it better for everyone. So if you have financial resources, deploy that capital to help others. If you have time resources, deploy that time. Those are both incredible privileges. So many people want more time. So many people want more money. So if you are abundant in those areas, leverage them, explore them, give them. This isn't something that's wrong with society. It's something that was wrong with me, where I let the word privilege be negative. And so I looked at my privileges growing up and my privileges today as a bad thing. And I think that really tainted my experience moving through life. And it made me feel guilt. It made me feel a bit of sort of remorse for like something that I can't control, which is what family I was brought into. And I'm really trying to rewrite that narrative and instead paint it as like, yes, I have the opportunity to have capital that I can deploy to this podcast that I'm starting from scratch and obviously make no money doing, but it's something I'm passionate about. Lets me connect with others. It's a tremendous, tremendous privilege to have the time to do it as well. And I recognize that. But I think it's doing a disservice to yourself when you look at it as only a negative thing and when you cannot paint it positively. And ultimately, like that's what the whole practice of gratitude is. It's about saying, everything in this world has a positive and a negative. There's pros and cons to everything. With every yes, that's no to everything else. So you have to make the conscious decision to look at it from the positive lens, to look at it through the right perspective.
How do I utilize it productively?
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't even have to be necessarily about whether others view it as negative or positive, or you view it as negative or positive. It's just, how are you using it to help?
Yeah. How are you using it to serve? You mentioned that your art is a service to those who may not be able to create. They're able to consume and understand what you're portraying. That is a service to others, a service to the world.
Yes, which is definitely one of the grand themes that I feel, comes back to that question of, why do you make art?
Yes. Can you quickly define surrealism? You mentioned that a few times.
Surrealism is like a stretched reality, a warped reality. Most people think of the artist Dali with the clocks that are melting off the side of the table. A clock is like structure and reality and time. And, the clock's melting is like the definition of surrealism, is like reality being warped. And
I feel like time is such a great one for that because it's just real.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist anywhere outside of what we created.
So for me, my surrealism is taking concepts that I've experienced and tweaking them to feel like they don't exist in this planar that we are familiar with, so that our brains can be taken to another realm for a moment in time.
Speaking of brains going to another realm, how has psychedelics influenced your journey through art?
Totally. I would say I'm like a middle ground psychedelic user, and I've had all of your typical full-blown experiences with different things, and just decided that I'm pretty sure my brain is already existing in that space of psychedelia. I already have like a lot of intense thoughts that are processing that a lot of people achieve when they're experiencing psychedelics. And so for me, it's so overwhelming that I have transitioned more into the space of like natural mushroom psychedelic experience.
Do you explore with like breath work or any sort of non-drug or plant medicine ways to experience that sort of psychedelic effect? Have you explored that at all?
Not really.
Okay.
That would be an awesome avenue, and I'm sure it would have some sort of effect on my conceptualization of things.
Yeah.
I've done meditation, and meditation allows for the concepts to come to mind when you're supposed to kind of be quieting your mind. That's when my best ideas, come to play. And my best ideas come to play in nature. And usually when I'm out in nature, there's moments of just meditation that happen naturally. You don't have to necessarily say, I'm meditating now. It's just happening because you're there, and it's solace and serenity. And that's where, when the creative ideas come flowing the best, and I just record them. I usually get ideas and have to create them later. It's not,
so like you'll be
I'm
in
not usually
nature.
having the idea at the moment I'm making it.
Right. And I think that's an interesting thread to pull on, because one of the ways that I think the sort of corporate culture has tainted the way that we explore, creation is that you're expected to go to work between a set of hours, sit at a desk, and like, all right, fucking go.
Yeah.
It's 9 a.m. Go. Now it's time to like
It would
work.
never
It's time
work
to
for
execute.
me. Yeah.
No, and I don't think it
doesn't
works.
work for a lot of people.
Well, I don't think it works. It's not like a human thing.
It numbs a lot of people.
Yeah. It's not the natural way that we are able to do our best. Is like we're not on someone else's time. We're on our own time, and like we don't know what that time is. It's just, creative
Creativity
inspiration
comes,
sparks. Yeah.
From inspiration, and you don't feel inspiration when you're muted in that sense. And so
or when you're forced, hey, Lexie, come up with something creative.
I think that's why graphic
now.
design ultimately would have been a poor career choice.
It's like put you in a box and you have to create for someone else's.
Commission work is really hard, actually, for all artists. It's hard you have to read people's minds. And
well, this is actually a really good segue, because I wanted to ask you, do you do commissioned art?
Yeah, I do. And it's very lucrative, and I should do it more. But you get a bad seed every now and again of someone who is really difficult to work with, and they, give you an idea and you create what you felt like they were trying to translate. And then if it's not that, they want you to redo the whole thing, and they don't understand what it means to completely deconstruct and redo an idea. So it's like, you have to pull information out of someone right off the bat. You have to get as much as you possibly can before you begin something, or else it derails, and then the time frame is no longer within what your pay agreement is. And so I have a distaste for it every now and again when someone really doesn't understand the process of an artist and is disrespectful about your time. But I have, methods in place that, get as much info as I can from somebody before embarking on it. 9 times out of 10, it's like people are so pleased, and it's awesome. It feels good to do that, but it's also not creating the ideas that I originally had in my head, which feels really different than creating someone else's idea. It's not as pleasurable and not as much of a release, but you do have to just do that as an artist. And something that I started doing that actually really vamped up my business during COVID, when I thought my business was going to completely become obsolete, was developing logos for people. So I trained myself in how to create logos, and then everyone was starting their own online businesses because more people were just online due to COVID naturally, and more unnaturally. And so they needed those, and I was just churning out logos, and that felt really great. And that was kind of like my fusion between some of my graphic design knowledge and my illustration. I was like, these aren't going to be your typical corporate logo. These are going to be illustrated logos. I started to work with psychedelic brands and weed brands and other like companies that maybe were music related or just psychedelic related in one form or another, or some holistic
something more
that
fluid
was about wellness and alternative medicine. So all of those things are really like my work channels well through those concepts. And
I feel like those are pretty true to you. Like those are things that you like. Everything that you mentioned is something that I've either personally experienced or heard you talk about. Like that's something you value.
So that feels in alignment with, the brand Psychedelics getting to develop logos for companies that were somehow psychedelic related. And even though my personal form of psychedelics use is very minimal compared to what you would initially imagine someone who named their business Psychedelicious would be, it's still like heavily represented in the themes of my
Yeah.
work. So it is like a gentle dabble in a very like mushrooms for me are just like a playful way to slightly alter the mind enough to make way for new ways of thinking,
Yeah.
new concepts.
Yeah, I think mushrooms particularly, like you are consuming a part of nature that
Right.
has incredible properties from their network to just, I mean, they're like fungus is just fascinating.
It's literally stimulating your brain and
It
connecting
is.
your synapses.
It is. And it makes sense. You are the biology that exists in the mushroom is becoming part of your
Mm.
biology. And so, yeah, it's,
Yeah, I think I mean, that's a lot of why there's anatomical structures in my artwork, and
mm,
I've done a lot of brain stuff and drawn a lot of brains, and I think I like to make that connection, between what parts of your body are formulating these ideas. And the heart and the brain, I've always felt at the epicenter
yeah.
for me, especially with mushroom.
And I feel like there's a sort of this tension too between the heart and the brain. Like, the heart being the emotional and sort of like purpose driven side, and the brain being the logical, more reason driven side. And like, I don't know if that's something you've experienced.
I should do a drawing where it's like they're holding each other,
Yeah. Honestly,
anatomical, and they're like, "You're doing a good job, bro."
I would love that piece of art because I think that's something that I really struggle with is like, I think I have just this tendency, and I don't know why, to like just follow like the logical choice. And I should say, I want to
You need
in,
them to acknowledge one another.
correct. There's a time and place for each, hopping on a motorcycle. That's where you need to be very logic driven. If your heart says, be free, don't wear a helmet. No, fucking put a helmet on. You can have nearly equally as much fun. I think you can have more fun wearing a helmet because I don't feel as terrified for my life personally. I would actually prefer
Yeah,
riding with a
you'll
helmet.
just break your arms. But your brain will still exist.
Yeah, yeah. A broken arm is a hell of a lot easier to heal than being a vegetable. That's for
Yeah.
sure. You mentioned specifically you're talking about commissioned work, but you did talk a little bit about like having to scrap something and start over. Have you?
I hate that. That might
Yeah.
be one of my biggest downfalls.
Does it happen in your own art, or is it only commissioned work? Like, do you sometimes finish a piece or get to a point and you're just like, fuck, this is not what I wanted?
In my own art, it's easy because I can just say, this isn't
That was the
working out.
intention.
Yeah,
Oh,
this isn't working out. Next.
okay.
And stop and
And you're
try
fine with
something
that.
different.
You like are totally okay
But when
with
it's for
scrapping it.
someone else, you have to accomplish it. So
Gotcha.
you got to get around that obstacle, and it could be frustrating. I think there's so many artists that create like, I think of the people who stack stones on rivers,
Yeah, yeah.
and muralists who know that their mural is going to be painted over the next year for someone else to do
Mm.
something. I have a very hard time wanting to be that kind of artist.
Mm.
I hate the idea of,
Impermanence.
yeah, I don't know why that's just how I am. It's like, but I'm going to put all this time and effort into it. Like, I need it to continue to exist.
Mm.
If it doesn't, what's the point? And so that could be like a psychological thing that I'm
Yeah.
grappling with that
Do you f-
connects to something else. But
Do you feel like that sort of like, rejection of impermanence and desire for things to just continue to exist, do you think that is attached to other parts of your life or just with art?
yeah, I mean, it could. I mean, more recently, with pain and rejection in relationships, I think that I'm probably going to be learning a lot more now about being okay with impermanence, because something I thought that was going to last my whole life, a marriage, no longer exists. That rearranged my entire viewpoint of relationships, because I thought, yeah, this is where I'm at.
Right.
We're just going to keep working on it. We can get through the hard times together. I never thought that it would come to the point where one gave up and forced me to give up too, but for the best in the end. And I think that my issue with impermanence would have, if he still wanted to be there, I still wanted to work on it, it probably would have kept us both in a bad space. But I'm grateful for him wanting to get a divorce, because now I'm glad to be on the other side of that and have my freedom. And I think that being okay with impermanence allows for more freedom. So I want to be okay with that. I want to be more liberal in creating my art. My art is very detailed, very concise, very Virgo, which is what my zodiac is, and I claim that 100%. I'm a perfectionist, and for some artists, that works really great for them. But I do think it's probably created boundaries for me in being able to just like freely create. And I think that's why people feel okay knowing that their artwork is going to get washed away by the ocean, whatever they sand art they made. For me, it's just like, oh, are you like, oh my God, are you not like crying right now? This is horrific for me to see this happening. Like, it's even hard to sometimes look at sand art just knowing it's gonna be gone. It gives me the ick, but it's fucking cool looking. It's just, I don't understand. I'm having a hard time understanding why people would make their life's work something that could be washed away.
I don't know. I see the beauty in it. You can't experience true happiness without sorrow. It's kind of like you can't really appreciate the things that will stand the test of time until you can appreciate those that won't. And even as a human, right? Like everyone dies. There's no escaping that, right? But that's also, I think, a big reason why I tend to be grateful for where I am in this moment is the recognition that I am impermanent. Like I
Sure.
can't, if I lived forever, then like I wouldn't fucking do anything
Yeah.
because like at a certain point, I would have enough money accruing through interest because I'm living for 1,000,000 years that I would never have to worry about money. So what's the incentive to work?
Yeah.
If I have to live, what's the incentive of finding, someone who I can, explore romantically if like I just know that there's going to be an infinitely many partners out there, then what's the point? You know?
Yeah, I don't really view I feel like I have a healthy view of death. I
Mm.
understand that it's coming. Like I have this concept, morbid optimism. I know I'm gonna die, so let me enjoy my life.
Yeah.
Like let me enjoy every moment. I could die at any time. Let me enjoy every moment. So in that sense of impermanence, I think I'm in a healthy space.
Mm.
But it's just art
Yeah.
that it's like I have done a mural that was painted over and I'm okay. I didn't suffer, but I guess it's harder for me to see people who put their entire creative career into balancing rocks that are going to fall and sand art that's going to wash away, chalk art
That's
that's
fair.
going to wash away.
Do you have a fear, or do you experience this currently, that you'll, especially now doing this professionally, like you said, you support yourself through art, that the passion, the drive behind it is ever gonna lessen?
Well, it hasn't since the moment I got that Swiss Army knife scissors in my
Since
hand.
the age of 3, you've been
Yeah,
at it. Yeah, that's fair.
it's only increased.
Okay.
And since my work is derived from experience, heightened experiences, as long as I continue to put myself in situations where I'm getting to experience new things, which is new relationships, new travels, new music, all of those things are some of my biggest inspirations, my
Mm.
greatest inspirations for wanting to create. And human beings are relationships with another human being is one of my pinnacle inspirations. People are my muses. People that I fall in love with are my muses. Um, as an optimistic person and a lover, I'm going to continue to travel. I'm going to continue to fall in love and I'm going to continue to have heightened experiences in nature and push myself. I think that my art is going to continue to reflect that. If I moved into a cabin in the woods and I was alone, I don't think much would stimulate me to want to create if I was like isolating. So, but I just can't see that becoming a situation based on who I am as a person.
You feel like the connection is a big, like, driver of the art that you create.
Yeah. If I'm feeling a lull in my art, I know all I have to do is travel.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to make that happen time frame wise and financially,
Totally.
but when I do make it happen, it is a reset button. Like I know that
Totally.
is, kind of a corny thing to say about taking a vacation, but
That resonates a lot with me. When I feel myself in a rut, my default is like, all right, time to fuck off. Whether that's, going up to Wyoming for a couple of days, like what I did last weekend, or, going to
yeah,
Europe
right
or
when you
whatever.
came back, you were like, want to be in a podcast?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I
So
definitely had the inspiration
you
there.
got
But
inspired.
I do. I find, it's interesting because I mentioned being an extrovert, and like, I love connecting with people. Like, I also think it would be hard for me to like live in a world where I was just so distant from authentic connection. I need that in my life.
Yeah.
But I do also find a lot of inspiration and solace in solidarity. I lived out of a van in Southern Australia for 7 months alone.
I find that inspiring, and
Mm.
I want more of that in my life. I just don't know what it looks like yet. This is my first time being single in 16, 17 years.
Wow.
And I've only been single for 6 months now.
Yeah. You have an exciting journey ahead of you. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So I have been forced to experience time alone, which as an extroverted extrovert, it is painstaking to be alone. But I talk to myself a lot, which is helpful, and having a
Same.
dog is helpful.
Yeah.
Tons of dialogue just constantly.
I'm such a huge
Like,
proponent
if
of
anyone
talking
can
to
see
yourself.
me right now.
Sometimes if I'm feeling a bit embarrassed about it, like I'll walk around Cheeseman, but I'll put my headphones in so then people think I'm on the phone, and I'm just fucking talking to myself.
I'm embarrassed for you for that.
What do you mean?
You walk and talk to yourself in the park.
Fuck yeah, I do. Like I said, I love people, but I also fucking love my alone
I'm blushing for
time.
you right now.
Well, you can blush for me all you want. I feel zero embarrassment behind that fact.
So funny.
I mean, I am fucking entertaining as hell, and
Maybe I'll take that tip.
You should. Like, I mean, especially you have a dog, so you kind of have another excuse to. Man, I don't care. I love talking to myself. When I go on hikes alone, I'm chatting to myself the whole time.
Yeah.
Not the whole time.
That's
I like
good.
silence and listening to nature too, but
it is a skill to be happy with being on your own. And I think it will only further assist me in seeing myself as an individual after being in a relationship for so long and relying on partnership for so long, as a way to love myself, a validation. I have spent the majority of the last few years really like trying to understand what self-love is. And even though like I love myself and I'm proud of myself, I never really knew how to just love me. And I've always put so much of my time and energy into other people. And it's really hard to reverse that and put it back this direction. It feels selfish to want to devote so much to myself. But then when I started, I began to see the benefits and it benefiting others around me too, ultimately.
I'm not here to bash on, religion. I'm personally not religious, but if you choose that route, there's nothing wrong with that. But I do think what?
Bash.
Yeah, I'm going to bash it. I think one of the dangers of it is, especially Christianity, because I'm definitely the most knowledgeable about that religion. This whole notion of like you and your spouse become one, which means that by definition, you are each a half to begin with.
Yeah.
That's fucked up. Like there's no way you should ever think of yourself as a half and seeking that other half. Like I hate the other half, that phrase.
I feel the same way too. I'll never say that.
No.
Yeah. Or my better half.
Your better half. It's like, that's like, why would you say that about yourself?
Yeah.
Why would you say that you're just like you're not even a
Our
half?
response should be, so you hate yourself?
Yeah. It's like, what? That's not a good thing.
Huh?
So, but my point with this is, I think given your religious, upbringing or exposure, and I think just like even removing religion, but just looking at like culturally, the especially with marriage
also
culture.
being a female too.
True. You're, especially being a female, like
people pleasing.
Yes.
Is a huge part of my upbringing that I'm working on deconstructing, and it's a hard one because it's fun to please people. It feels good, but it is damaging in the long run, and it really damaged me and my ability to know what a good partner for me would be.
Right.
And I have to deconstruct a lot to even be able to see green flags.
Yeah.
Red flags have been green flags to me for a long time.
And that's the danger, right? Is that when you're exposed and you're this picture of like the typical, family and marriage and all that, when it's painted as like the epitome of happiness, then when you see things that sort of index in that direction, you think of them as green flags, even when, for example, the half concept, right? Like when you're taught from a young age that your objective, particularly as like a woman, is to find a man who will take care of you and you are there to serve him, which is all more or less what the Bible tells you to do, then everything that indexes towards that, you internalize as a good thing. But when you remove yourself from like that sort of perspective and you think of more objectively about life and you're like, okay, I am now alone. I must create the life I want. Are those actually the things that I should be looking out for? No.
It kind of rocks your world.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
But it is again a privilege to have been put in scenarios that allowed me to think outside of the box.
Absolutely.
Which, 1, school, 2, moving away from my hometown, having to meet new people with new perspectives, and 3, breaking the traditional mold of being in a marriage.
Yeah.
And probably a lot more things.
Yeah.
But
those are great starts.
Good starts. Yeah. And good starts to empowered female individualism, and so is a motorcycle.
Fuck yeah, it is. It's a great start. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Do one thing every day that scares you.
Great. What have you done today?
This excited me. What scared me?
Maybe you haven't done it yet.
I haven't done it yet. Yeah.
That's fair. No pressure. And then I think the last question I'll have for you is to flip the script on that particular question, which is for those who, like myself, actually, who are excited by the idea of pursuing a, sort of call it non-traditional or like a path that feels more heart-driven than brain-driven.
Wait, can you start over?
Yeah, I can.
I was thinking of another piece of advice.
Do you want to share?
Yeah,
why don't you
then
share?
we'll do that.
Yeah, 100%. This is your podcast.
The other piece that I heard in a song once was that a song that had been a graduation speech was a graduation speech for Harvard turned into a song. And there was one phrase that it was like, advice is a form of nostalgia. So when you get advice, it's like picking a dusty piece, an object up and wiping away the parts on the surface and revealing what's underneath, revealing your own truths. So you should take advice with a grain of salt, which is another good phrase. And when I learned that, I think it benefited me so much in life in understanding that other people are just fucking figuring it out too. And their advice is not the advice that you have to choose, but to take it and reformulate it in what way fits your life the best or makes the most sense in your decision-making process for the most successful outcome. Okay, what was your next question?
Actually, I want to touch on that because it feels like the emotional reaction you have to something that's nostalgic does feel very similar to like the emotional reaction to a good piece of advice. Yeah. And then you kind of said it at the end, but I think this reminds me of one of the best pieces of advice I ever got, which was listen to all advice, but choose what to take.
That is so similar.
It's so similar. Yeah.
I'll send you this song so you can listen
please
to
do.
it. You don't know that. When you're a sapling, you think you just have to listen to the elders. Yeah. You think the things that they say, and that's how religion gets seeped so strongly.
What advice do you have for those who are looking to follow their creative endeavors, follow their heart, find their purpose, and, ignore the naysayers, but really feel convicted behind that choice?
Yeah, you just answered it with ignore the naysayers.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's understanding that you can make any reality possible. And I've not always felt this way. Like I had to see myself achieve what my brain at that time viewed as impossible to understand that this does exist. And it is, yeah, that's the most optimistic thing that you can say. Anything is possible because, it all comes with its tolls. And know that you have to make the steps forward. You have to choose to make those steps forward to have any sort of outcome. You can't just sit there and expect magic to happen. But you can absolutely create magic. You can absolutely manifest it. Say things out loud. Don't just think things in your head. Every time I've, wished for something and I've said it out loud, it came true in some form, because you're actualizing it to your own existence. When you say it out loud, you're letting it connect from your brain to your heart and not just existing in your brain. And then into your fingers and toes for action. And my brother had given me some interesting advice during the divorce. I hated this analogy when he said it because the imagery made me uncomfortable, but it was like, to eat a whole elephant, you have to start with the toe and just start by eating the toe. And it was when I had like a year's worth of paperwork ahead of me. But this could, be translated into any creative endeavor. Any endeavor is just knowing, yes, it looks and feels like a heavy elephant. And you just start with the toe and it'll start rolling forward after that. You just have to start. That's all you have to do. It's that simple. Start.
Thank you so much, Lexie, for joining.
Thank you for having me.
It was my pleasure.
What a joy to discuss my art to these depths. Makes me feel all the more powerful and that I'm heading in the right direction of my life.
You are. It's very clear. I'll say, as like an outsider who doesn't know you that well, you should be very proud and excited, because I think that, it'll become apparent to everyone who listens to this that there's a fire, inside of you that's burning for this stuff, and it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing it.